Alright, I do not believe humans will survive the next 1,000 years unless we explore space. There are too many accidents that could befall life on one planet. That was a quote by Stephen Hawking, and we have all seen movies or heard stories about possible end-of-the-world situations. That is why the United States Senate must reinstate the manned space exploration program at NASA and help fund space exploration throughout the country. We will first look at the problem behind this and the solution for it. First, let's look at the problem of the United States not investing in space. In 2011, according to NASA.gov, last updated 2012, Obama shut down the manned space exploration program last year around this time in hopes of saving money to help get us out of our recession that we're currently in. That ultimately just eliminated the amount of jobs and research that NASA was developing. Also, according to NPR.com, last updated in 2012, exploration is what drives mankind. Like, without exploration, like say Christopher Columbus wouldn't have discovered America, you can only imagine how radically different our country or our world we live in now would be. Also, according to ExtremeTech.com, last updated in 2012, without the NASA manned space exploration program, it takes away jobs, like I mentioned earlier, and a lot of discoveries. Like, if we're not out there trying to explore and trying to advance to a greater goal, then we're not going to be striving to be better than somebody else or be ahead of the competition, which is ultimately what makes companies greater than other companies. Like, look at Apple, for example. They obviously, Microsoft was here first, and they were kind of the leading head of the computer like generation and stuff like that. And Apple was the underdog, and after a while, they strived to be as good as Microsoft and come up and catch up with them. And now look at them, they have $100 billion in the bank, and they're one of the leading companies when it comes to that kind of market. Also, according to ThinkBig.com, last updated in 2011, the current view on space isn't working. Many people believe we have to focus on our problems on our planet right now, which is kind of understandable, but at the same time, we can focus on fixing the problems on our planet while we're exploring space at the same time. It doesn't take that much to balance the two. I mean, the things we'll learn from developing new technologies in space, such as recycling oxygen and developing cheaper food that we can hand out to the poor people that don't have food right now, or third world countries. Secondly, we'll look at the solutions to this problem. The U.S. must promote space exploration by reinstating the manned space program at NASA, and also like promoting space exploration for private companies. They can do this in a couple of ways. Like I said, they can reinstate the manned space program, and they can also offer incentives to third-party space explorers, like companies like Virgin Mobile, US Galactic. Those are all companies that are in the process of developing rockets to help get us to the space station and offer rich millionaires the opportunity to go into space for minutes at a time. So if we promote them with money and incentive and prizes and competitions, we're going to fuel up the space race, much like we had back in the Cold War or whatever, which ultimately drove us to going to the moon and getting that stuff in the first place. This solution is extremely practical. Of the United States budget of $1.45 trillion, NASA last year only received about $8.5 billion, and that's 0.5% of the annual budget. So if we cut 1% from the defense budget, which would hardly even touch the money they have about $800 billion a year to spend on defending our country, which yes is obviously important, but if we took away 1% of that, that would triple NASA's budget and allow for them to reinstate the manned space program, inspire other people to explore space, which would be great. And the solution is obviously desirable. It would fuel our economy because it would promote jobs for like people that NASA works with, like the companies that they do contracts with. NASA doesn't build everything they do at NASA. Like, they send it up to specialized companies where they machine parts, develop technologies, stuff like that, which would be a great boost in our economy. And also, it ultimately one day probably save us from the end of the world. If we could be out on a different planet and have multiple civilizations, we'd obviously survive through Earth exploding or the Mayans end of day situation, which would be best case scenario because I don't think any of us want to die. So we first looked at the problem and the solution, and it is a practical way to solve the manned space exploration problem. So without space exploration, mankind is doomed.